Gonzaga Nation SI rolls on. This time we're in studio in person. Adam, it's been a while. I know we talked to each other on Zoom with our other releases. Now we get a chance to just sit back, relax, talk hoops. Last week, a little bit unfortunate. Absolutely. We were both planning on going down. I was going to call the game TV wise. You obviously had the two radio games.
Yeah.
They both got popped. Did you even pack your bags, or what was the plan for you?
I was packed. I was dreaming of San Diego air and sunshine. And obviously the game got canceled. So yeah, it sucked because it's like 14 degrees in Spokane right now. So I just wasn't very happy about it. But yeah, it's one of those deals. Roll with the punches, but I was looking forward to some sunshine and New Year's in LA and stuff. And nope.
What's a typical road trip for you as a broadcaster? Because you have the advantage of you're just calling typically from the Gonzaga perspective.
Yeah.
And you've seen them once you get to the bulk of the season, your prep. I don't want to say it's nothing, but it's minimal compared to what it was the first 4 or 5 games a year. We're still learning, guys. What's a typical day?
Yeah, like a conference prep is pretty simple. Obviously, I know most of the routine for other teams are kind of schemes, right? That doesn't really change. Obviously, players will change a little bit, but usually in the West Coast Conference, it's 4-year guys. So you get to know kind of their tendencies and what they like to do. So yeah, like a prep day for me is I usually go to team breakfast. And then I'll probably go to sleep or something after that. And then I got go to team meal is the most important one. It's usually 4 hours before the game. And that's when I can get a real feel of what the scout is for us on how we want to play them, obviously. But like personnel, what are some tendencies that this team does? Go to that and then get ready for the game. It's pretty simple. I mean, I always say I could do it with my eyes closed, and that's maybe a little bit too narcissistic, but it's you know how it is. I mean, you're a broadcaster obviously as well. As you just I call the games like I'm talking to my friend, which Huddy is my buddy. Yeah. Like we're at a bar, and I just kind of explain it that way.
Yeah. Well, I've told you this not on camera before, but just in our conversations, this is what, year 4 for you or year 3?
4.
And I'm not saying this because I think I'm a better broadcaster by any stretch, but I've seen growth or heard growth in when I listen to your broadcast.
I appreciate it.
And I hear it in the post game. And I think for a lot of average fans, they get a sense of what's going on. But for true basketball guys, when they hear just little clips or phrases that you use, you're like, okay, he gets it. He knows what he's talking about. What's that been like for you, kind of navigating that growth curve?
Well, at first I was obviously really green. I never did it before. Obviously you didn't you do a broadcasting major?
Father Don Heiberger at GU. Eric Edelstein and I basically got each other through college.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now he's getting killed by dinosaurs in Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah.
That's a tangent. We could go another day.
I was kind of, but then it's like, fridge. It's called fridge.
Yeah.
So yeah, at the start I was like, how much terminology can you really use, as far as the deeper basketball terminology? And that's not like saying, the average guy, but like there's certain things like, hey, come out on a ball screen. If they iced, you're going to twist the screen.
Yeah. It's up here for most people.
Yeah. You know exactly what I meant. Most people don't. So but you have to be able to explain that. And then you have to explain it in a sense that, they're radio, so they can't see it obviously. So you have to do it fast. So that part, explaining things at the start in the beginning, it's gotten better over time. And then I think trying not to repeat yourself. Do you repeat yourself because obviously I don't see your broadcasts.
Yeah.
But I say fantastic. A lot of people are like, stop saying fantastic. But
I used to say phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Yeah. See, like I always, there's certain words that, at the end of the night, I'm like, man, I probably said that like 6 times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's grown over time. I enjoy it. It's fun to do obviously call the games, but I do it with a good friend of mine. So that part's cool. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like me and Huddy kind of just fucking around on the deal. It's cool to be able to be a part of the action still, in a sense.
Well, the nice part for me is, as opposed to, because I thought I was going to go down the coaching path.
Yeah. So did
is when you're doing that, you're breaking down film, looking at strengths, weaknesses as a team or individual to put together a scouting report. When you watch games now and you watch film, you're looking for big picture stuff that I can share in a broadcast. I'm sure you do too. But when the game's over, I might be ticked off that I said one stat wrong, or I might get a tweet from a parent when I said the name of the kid wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm done. You
then
go have a
just
beer,
go
you have a
home.
glass of wine, and you're done for the night.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about broadcasting, staying close to the game, I think.
I totally agree. Some people are like, do you ever get mad when, Gonzaga loses? And it doesn't happen very often. That's not a, humble brag or whatever. But it's like, I'll be maybe mad for like half an hour. And then it's like, okay, it's, where's the nearest Applebee's, Huddy? Let's go drink some beers or whatever. So yeah, that part is definitely a bonus of it. Coaching aspect, you coach your kids, I coach my kids. So you get to see the growth of players. That's fun too. So you obviously miss out on that of, if you're recruiting a kid, bring them up and then maybe you can send them off to professional ranks, all that stuff. But, broadcasting is fun and it's not a job that there's not a lot of them. So be one of them. And then, for Gonzaga, number one program in the country or top 5, you know what I'm saying? It's pretty cool to be, we see some of these guys on the road that are great. The St. Mary's guy, Alex, is awesome. Some of the other guys from the WCC are great. And it's like, me and Huddy laugh. It's like, we are so good. Yeah. We are so lucky because some of these guys have never even been to the tournament. Yeah. You know what I mean? So we are always like, hey man, this is fun and good to see you. You know what I'm saying? Cause it's just we're pretty lucky that we, win 35 games and we're calling winners all the time. And, it's better than going in there and, another Pacific turnover, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think one of the frustrations that our KHQ regional broadcast crew has is we get
You've never called a loss, have you?
I don't think we have. No, I think the closest game we've ever called to a loss was when Gino Crandall was in North Dakota. Yeah, and they went to overtime. Yeah. I think that's the closest we ever had. And so I don't think Richard Fox has ever called a loss.
I think he told me that. Yeah, that's why I brought that up. Yep.
And Heister and I, we call games for Pac-12 Network all the time that are close games, but we don't get the excitement of some of these other broadcast crews. How, when you talk to other ones, when you do your prep on the road, do you get a sense of they're jealous of what?
No. I think jealous maybe, or friendly envious would be a better way, but maybe that means the same thing. Cause some guys have been doing this obviously way longer than myself. And, obviously some of these guys are grinders. So how the business is. And I just walked into it cause I played. Right. So it's like, here you go, Mo, you want to try this? So some of these guys have been grinding and they've never had a successful team or, magical run or anything like that. And, it doesn't make the job, define the job, but it's one of those things when you look back when you're older, like, hey, I remember I got a call that for this team or this group. It's pretty special. And you get folded into being part of the group if you have a magical program. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So there's no, like I said, I think most of them are just like, oh, you guys got it pretty good. And we're like, yeah, we know, or they're always like, man, you guys are so good. And we're like, yeah, I know, nicely, yeah, we get it. So we'll try not, hopefully they don't win by 50 on your guys' home court. You know what I'm saying?
Which has happened plenty of times.
It's happened. Yeah. So, but the broadcast crews are usually, there's only one crew that we've had issues with that just won't give us information. I'm not even going to say it because I don't even want to start it, but there's only one that we've had and we're just we're not playing each other. Yeah. We're trying to
tell us a little bit about the team. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's funny because you and I both go from a situation where when you're playing, basically you get handed an itinerary of the bus leaves for the airport at this time. You're on this flight, at least when we flew commercial. Now it's hey, the bus leaves, you go get on your charter jet. Yeah. People think that our travel is easy. It's not easy during the college basketball season. I'll share with you in a second after I hear your take, what I just went through for a game that got canceled. What's the typical travel deal for you guys? Do you travel day of or the day before?
We do day before, and like I said, Tom Hudson's my friend, and he's a genius. We always take like the 6 a.m. to get the hell out of Spokane for a little bit. So then we're down there for like an extra day.
So you take golf clubs, I hope?
We have. I'm a big poker player, so I go play poker a lot.
Yeah.
I like pinball as well. So then we'll go find like game arcades. And then like Huddy has people around the country too. So like, it's not like we hang out, but it's not like every single time. But like, if we go on a long trip, like usually one night, me and Huddy are going to get after it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, and it's fun.
Yeah.
And like I said, it builds a rapport. And I knew Huddy before, but like you become better friends with the guy. I'm sure
it helps with the back and forth. Like
absolutely.
Some people think Heister and I don't like each other. People have actually said, man, Heister bullies you. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I give it back to him just as much as people think he gives it to me.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing with Heister, and I'm sure he'll listen to this or somebody will share it with him, is he gets so overly excited for Gonzaga that people think he's a homer. And I try to call it down the middle.
Yeah.
Where do you get the sense that you fall and Huddy falls in the homer / straight down the middle category?
Well, I usually try to understand that obviously the people that are listening, 99% are fans. Okay. But also like if the reffing is in our favor, I will always say if it's a bad call, even if it's in our favor. I always kind of root for the other teams for a little bit, especially if it's probably going to, like a 30-point spread or something like that. And you probably know it's going to be a blowout. So I kind of root for the other teams a little bit. So I guess I'm as non-biased as I can get for considering I played there and blah, blah, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. But then also like sometimes I have to take myself back because I'm like, the people listening do want to be like, go Zags, you know what I mean? Like, so that aspect is kind of a fine line, I guess. But like I said, I just call it like I see it. And if a Gonzaga player commits a violation and it wasn't called, like nobody's going to be like, oh my God, why did you say that he did that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And especially like I said, for radio, you have to explain it.
Sure. In a quick amount of time.
Yeah. And you have to tell, because obviously people are just listening. So you have to explain. So like Drew Chimney looked like he traveled there and he probably did, but he still got 2 points, right? That's okay.
Well, the funniest experience that I've ever had with this, and I want to hear if he directly said something to you or another random fan did. This would have been about 7-8 years ago. And I'm just starting to really kind of grow my TV broadcasting. And our regional crew, we had a game at Santa Clara. And Santa Clara played Gonzaga really tight. I think this is when they had like Foster, who was a great scorer down there. And it was a tight game. I think Gonzaga maybe won by like 6 or 8, something like that. I go to practice a couple days later. And I sit down on the bench, and you know how it is when practice is going. Sometimes Few will come over and say something. Sometimes he won't. Within about the first 2 minutes of me sitting down at practice, Coach Few makes a beeline over to me, and he says, "So what? You're not a Gonzaga guy anymore? You don't want us to win? You're pulling for Santa Clara?" He's like, and he made a couple comments of like exact plays that I was during the game that he was referencing. And I looked at him and I said, "Coach, I'm just trying to call it down the middle. I'm not like one way or the other." He's like, "Okay, I got it. All right. You're not a Zag anymore."
He would say something like that.
Exactly. Do you have any experiences with him or a random fan?
No, not Fewy. And I think he probably knows I'd be like, like I'm going to change my broadcast because you told me something. Like, like we have that type of relationship. So I don't think he, but no, I've been lucky. I haven't had any fans be like, "Well, why'd you say it this way?" or whatever. Basically the UCLA game when I was yelling is the only, be like, "Dude, you were screaming like a child." I'm like, "Well, of course I was excited. Like you had to be there," type of moment. That's what it was. But I've been lucky that, I haven't had Coach Few critique my broadcasting ability. Like I would have been like, "Okay, dude," you know what I mean? Like,
well, I guess we both have an open mic. We can critique his coaching.
I sometimes do. That's the hardest thing, is because sometimes, like obviously he's a Hall of Fame coach. You just got USA basketball, it speaks for himself. But sometimes if you're watching a game, like you're supposed to be like, "Hey, I don't agree with that substitution pattern." Like fans want to hear that too, right? So that's the hardest part for me is like, that's the biggest thing is like substitution patterns. Sometimes I always scratch my head. Obviously they know more than I do.
Yeah.
But sometimes a guy will kind of be rolling, but they kind of, you know how it is. They stick.
Yeah,
they
you kind of scripted plan. And the only way you get off of it was with an absolutely bad stretch of turnovers or fouls.
But yeah, exactly. But sometimes a guy's rolling and won't get that the other way.
Yeah.
And goes a little bit further. So that's where I'm always have to like, why is that guy coming out, Huddy? You know what I mean? And he wants to say it too, but he's like, move it along. You know what I mean? But that's the hardest thing. But it's not like, we have a program that's like, that would lose close games because of coaching. That would be hard.
Yeah.
Like, why'd you take a timeout there? Why'd you run 1-4 low? And when you're with no rebounding ability and then they get a run out and you lose, you know what I'm saying? Like that never really happens, but I would probably say it if it did, I guess.
No, and that is also a fine line with college versus pro.
Yeah.
Because I've never called a pro game. Mm-hmm. I've done studio for NBA games.
Yeah.
But I've always kind of felt that college players, you can't critique them in the same way as pros because they're not getting paid. But those lines are starting to blur with NIL. Do you agree?
Yeah, but also like to me, they're kids. So I'm just like, what am I going to hammer this kid? Do you know what I'm saying? Sure. I get the thought process of that. Cause if a guy's making X amount of dollars or whatever, he is a professional essentially. Right. But they're 18, 19, 20, 21, and we all, my oldest daughter's 13. I'm like, if I was at a game and listening to it and somebody was hammering my kid, I'd be like, well, come on, man.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Now, professionally, I totally agree. Like it's fair game, do whatever you want. But for the most part, I try not to, get on the guys, I guess, during a broadcast. I don't see the value in that. They're kids.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it.
Well, because we're not recapping games, we can kind of go on a number of different tangents with this conversation right now. But was there a specific moment as an athlete when you went from college to the NBA because you were celebrated and then every player at the next level has an adjustment level, both like guys, media coverage. Yeah. Was there a moment or like, that's just not fair. Like that guy wrote this article or made that comment. They don't know me or anything enough about me.
Yeah. We had a writer who just passed and for the Charlotte Observer, Rick Bunnell, who was our beat writer. And he wrote a couple, not the best stories about me early, where it was kind of like, or he would assume things about you a little bit, so where it's like, I don't really even like know you. Like we haven't sat down and had any conversation, but at the flip side, that was his job. Yeah. Right. So then you get on the other side of it to go in and talk about broadcasting. It's obviously not print media, but it's the same side. We still get a media credential. Right. So I understand looking back that he was just doing his job and it wasn't anything like slanderous, but when you're younger and you're not used to that, right. Especially coming from this media market, you're like any critique seems over the top. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like he wasn't a bad guy, wasn't malicious, but you're just not. I was like, whoa, wait a second. Like I thought we're all on the same team here. You know what I mean? Buddy. Yeah. Yeah. So that was a little bit of adjustment.
Yeah. There was one I remember, and it was right out of the gate, my rookie year in training camp with the Hawks. Because most people don't know this, but I played my senior year on a torn meniscus.
Ouch.
Like, you remember Steve Long? Like literally hour before it happened again in the game against Eastern Washington. One of their guys fell on me. Yeah. Get through the game with adrenaline, nothing's wrong. The next morning, first step out of bed, boom, fall over.
Done.
I was like,
ouch. Swell up. And
everything. Luckily it didn't swell, but I didn't know it was torn until after the season. Steve-O and I were basically like, don't ask, don't tell. Yeah. Don't tell anybody. And this went through the whole NBA pre-draft process, went through Summer League, and where it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And to the point finally, and I think you know me well enough, like I just keep grinding through. I don't complain. I don't skip workouts. Training camp, like it was bothering me. I was getting like fifth to last in sprints.
Yeah.
And this rider saw it. He's like, how's this youngest guy on the team, a 6-foot point guard? How is he like last in sprints? I'm like, if you only knew how bad my knee hurt right now. And, I think 4 games into my rookie year, I finally told the trainers like, look, we got to figure this out because I'm doing everything I can. I've done it for months. What is it? MRI, torn meniscus, cut it out. You're back in 6 weeks. But that was my first experience. Yeah. And I was always kind of guarded the rest of the way with that journalist.
Yeah. Well, and we were lucky though. We grew up we came in on social media, or it was just in infancy. So like it's a whole different ball game now. Like I can see guys, well, it's a flip side to it though. Because you can control your own narrative now too, though, right? Like
to a certain extent, yeah,
you can, right? Like if you get a good publicist crew and do the right things and move the right people around, like you can control your own narrative. So that part is definitely an advantage of social media and all that in coming into critique or dealing with media that you're not used to. But also, there's way more voices to critique you. Yeah. So it'd be an interesting time to come into that life if it was now and see like how different perception would be viewed and how much you could shape it. Yeah. If that makes sense.
No, for sure. Well, that game against USD was canceled.
Yeah.
I was planning to go down to call it. I had a tea time at Torrey Pines set up the very next morning with one of my best friends who lives down there.
That's awful that that happened.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have said that. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Tea time at Torrey. That sucks.
Tea time at Torrey. What's the best golf course you've played on a road trip?
It's a good question. I played, what's the name of there's a country club in Vegas that a good family friends of the Power family is friends with. It's called Dragon Ridge or something like that. Beautiful course on top in Henderson, and you can see the whole strip from afar. And it was, all the houses on it, Celine Dion. It's like one of those places, just beautiful. So yeah, every time to Vegas, they were nice enough to get me on there once. So
the nice thing for you is you guys have like a 5-day stretch with the WCC tournament in Vegas. Yeah. So how do you balance the golf versus the poker? Since I know you like both.
The poker usually wins in my vice world that I live in. It usually takes over. I like to play cards. PLO is my game and hold them. So yeah, on the road trip, those road trips are the best though. How it is because you can kind of settle in and do your own thing. And, if there's one day you want to sleep all day to kind of catch up. And how many kids do you got? 6?
Yeah.
Right. So, sometimes, it's nothing against like your kids or your wife, but like sometimes it's like, hey, you got 8 hours of silence in a room. I know it sounds funny, but all the dads listening right now would be like, yeah, like, what do you want for Christmas? 8 hours of silence.
Yeah.
Right. So that part is nice. Sometimes I, kind of get back and just relax and stuff. But the road trips for me are nothing, man. It's awesome. Yeah. Like I get to go to California when it's 14 degrees in Spokane, call a game, be with my friend Huddy and other people around Gonzaga, have a few beers and then fly back home. It's like, darn, this is hard.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Shoot.
So I just had the world's worst travel experience for a broadcaster. So I mentioned, we talked about the USD game canceled. That was supposed to be the first leg of my trip.
Yeah.
And from San Diego, one of the best cities in the country, I was scheduled to call a game in Laramie, Wyoming.
Yeah.
Nothing against Laramie. It's just almost near impossible to get to.
It's hard to get to.
Yeah. So I had to change my flight plan. So I had to fly to Denver. Oh, and by the way, then the day I now arrive, New Year's Eve day, there's a snowstorm. So a 2-hour and 10-minute drive became a 4-hour white knuckle drive. Luckily I got to Cheyenne, and then you've spent time in Wyoming with your family. That I-80, I-80 was not closed. So I decided to go for it, which in the dark in a snowstorm wasn't easy.
Yeah.
So it took 4 hours in a snowstorm. On that drive, there was probably 40 cars that were in the ditch.
That's so scary.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So next morning, it's Boise State at Wyoming. Next morning, we have our coaches' Zooms because right now with protocols at CBS, you can't go to shoot around or they don't want you to. So you have Zoom meetings with coaches. Leon Rice, head coach at Boise State. We know him well. 9:30 a.m. He's like, oh, good. We're good to go. We shot last night. Guys, we're feeling good. We're going to go watch film in about 30 minutes. I'll see you at the arena. So games at 2 p.m.
Oh, so
I get to the arena at 12:40. No Boise State on the floor. 1 o'clock. No Boise State on the floor. I text Leon, what's going on? He's like, well, we're waiting on results. It's like, you got to be kidding me.
Wow.
Text me back 15 minutes later. Game's off.
Yeah.
So I travel all that way
to Laramie to go watch a warm up.
Yeah. So then I get in my car. I drive back now to Denver. It's still bad. Roads are bad.
Yeah.
Instead of 4 hours on the way, it took 3:15.
Yeah.
Sit in the airport for 7 hours because my flight was delayed 2.5 hours. I got it back into Spokane at 2:15, rolled into the house at 2:45 in the morning. And so that's I'm still catching up from that one. But that was my most brutal broadcasting experience.
Yeah, that's my cousin plays for Wyoming football, so I've been to Wyoming or to Laramie. We've done the Denver, then drive down, but we obviously do it in the winter. So yeah, I can't imagine.
It's a nice drive though.
When
in
it's
the
not,
daylight.
Yeah, when it's not snowing.
Yeah.
But it's were you happy when you were at the airport for 7 hours? Did you go drink some beers or something?
I had 2 big glasses of wine.
Yeah.
But it was to the point where like you can't fall asleep at the terminal at the gate because there was 2 other flights that
and the wine's probably like $28 a bottle, a glass or whatever.
I don't even want to know. Yeah. I don't want to look at that American Express statement when it comes in. Denver airport dinner, $300.
Yeah, exactly.
What the hell?
What the heck?
Yeah. Last question before we wrap this one up. You mentioned pinball.
Mm-hmm.
Poker, pinball, golf. I love all those.
Yeah.
I don't play as much poker as I used to.
Yeah,
Golf,
you used to play a lot.
Yeah. I've got Lord of the Rings pinball. Unfortunately, you'd hate to hear this. It's in my barn because we don't have room in the house for it right now. How many pinball machines do you have, and what's your favorite pinball machine?
The most I've had 9 at one point or through my house at one point, if that makes sense. Because it's a subculture or like a group where you can sell and they hold their value. So like you trade a lot and or you sell and then buy a new one. So right now I have 4. My favorite of all time, it's a tie between probably Attack from Mars or Medieval Madness, but the new Stern ones are great. How old's your Lord of the Rings, by the way?
Yeah, I know it's a collector's item now.
Yeah, no, those are good. That's a good game.
So,
how'd you get that?
My wife bought it for me for Christmas. The same year I tore my Achilles. Yeah. So I came home for her. My season was over. Uh-huh. That's my Christmas present. I played probably 6 hours of pinball for about 2 months straight.
Yeah.
After my Achilles surgery.
It's fun.
I was good.
Yeah, it's fun.
I'm not very good anymore.
Yeah.
But so it's about what? 12 years old, right when it first came out.
Yeah, they hold their value.
Yeah,
but yeah, if you ever
trying to swoop in.
Yeah, that's a good. That Lord of the Rings is a good game. It really is.
So
it's a highly sought after game.
Yeah. Random story on pinball. Do you know Todd McCulloch played in the NBA for years? We were teammates at UW.
Yeah, he goes to the pinball the arcade show in Tacoma. I see him out there.
He's world ranked.
Yeah.
And I had no idea until I had him on my other podcast. We stay in touch here and there, but he's like, yeah, I'm ranked.
Yeah, he's just like a celebrity at those deals. And guys, like obviously they know he plays hoops, but he's not known for like that. He's like, oh, that's Todd who used to play basketball, the pinball guy, which is cool.
I've never been to his house in Washington, but I've been to his old house in Philly in his basement.
Yes.
He had like 35 pinball machines. He had arcades like you were walking into a Dave & Buster's. He built a separate garage at his house in Washington. I want to say it's on Whidbey Island or one of those over there. It's like a separate garage that's just basically his own pinball and arcade. It's amazing. You got to connect with him on that. It's
a subculture, man. Like it's a fun hobby. Like I know people think it's funny, but like there's in the last 5 years of like pinball arcade bars and like for adults only, they're going up everywhere. So like everywhere I go, I just look up one of those and like,
why don't you open one in Spokane?
There is one downtown.
Really?
Yeah. It's a hard demographic to own a restaurant. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. I wouldn't do a restaurant.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
I know friends that are good at it and they're like, it's hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it's fun. It's something to do. And besides, sitting in the room and you just go play some pinball and, 7, 8, 9, 10 beers later, it's like, I can still keep this ball alive. That something's going right. So, man.
Yeah. I loved in Lord of the Rings when I'd get multi-ball.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get the pops going where it's extra balls and like, man, scare the heck out of
You have the
kids.
ISR on that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good one.
So much fun. I might have to go
really good
clean it up and bring it back in the house now. So,
Yeah.
well, Adam, appreciate it. It was a great episode. Look forward to bringing another release later this week. So for Gonzaga Nation SI, Adam Morrison, I'm Dan Dickau.